Encounters, welcome back. So today, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Now, I know it's fun to make brand new stuff, but what happens to the stuff that gets damaged when you have a hurricane right around Halloween season? Well, today we're going to be taking all my tombstones and we're going to be sprucing them up a little bit. Some of them got a little broken, some of them weren't even finished to begin with, but today we are going to be sprucing them up and getting them finished and ready for next season. This is actually a video I've been looking forward to because this is something I've been wanting to do for a while, especially since last year I noticed that a few of them were a little beat up and I kind of rushed through my second batch of them that I made and I just wanted to take care of that. So we're going to be taking this guy right here and we're going to be fixing them up. But first I want to tell you a little bit more about how they're constructed just so you can understand what I'm about to do. So let's go. So the thing with the tombstones is I really like how they come out, but they're incredibly time consuming, and a lot of the aging process consists of building up layers of paint. It actually takes a really long time, which I find a little frustrating. But these guys are made of pink insulation foam. They're in two pieces, the base and then the main part, which I usually design on a computer and then print out a paper template and then cut them out with this handheld saw that I have. Now, I kind of goofed when I made these, so as you can see, they're a little skinny. So that left me with the challenge of how do I stake them into the ground. So as you can see here, I've drilled two holes in the bottom of the base, and I put a piece of rebar or a tomato stake in there. And then up here, I've taken some half-inch PVC, and I've used Great Stuff expanding foam to attach them to the foam. And then what I've done is with the dry lock latex paint, I've taken a t-shirt and made sort of like a paper mache shell that goes over it and really holds it in place. Now if I had made this thicker, I would have been able to just drill a hole all the way through the bottom through the foam. But being that I made it so thin, that wasn't really possible. But this actually works out a little better, I think, because I can hammer in the rebar into the bottom holes, line it up, and then just pick it up and then slide the top of it over. I usually make them in batches of 5 because that's how many I can make out of one big sheet of insulation foam. So my first batch of 5, these 3 are actually from one of my first batches. And they came out pretty well. The second batch of 5 is actually a much darker finish, but I never got to finish adding the details in for the cracks or dry brushing. I also never went ahead and re-secured the PVC onto the back, so it's kind of just the loose Great Stuff foam holding it on, and I actually had a few break last year. I have another tombstone that has a skull in it, like this one, and it popped off because the foam broke. So the whole secondary hole up top, the whole piece actually just pulled apart from the foam. So today we're going to be reattaching those, and we're going to be completing the finish on that second batch of 5 that I made, and we're also going to be adding some details like the moss that you see here to some of my first ones that never actually had moss added to them. So we're going to go get that started.
Okay, so first things first, we are going to be using the Great Stuff expanding insulation foam to reattach the skull that popped off and the 2 little pieces of PVC that help hold it into the ground. This stuff is crazy, stupid sticky, and it will ruin everything it touches, so be careful. So the next thing we're going to do is take this gross old t-shirt and we're going to cut it up into strips. And what I'm going to use that for is to help secure the PVC on, just to help reinforce the expanding foam that we used. And we're going to use it as sort of like instead of newspaper, to make like a paper mache type deal with the latex paint. So now what I'm doing is I'm taking the t-shirt strips and I'm generously painting them with the dry lock waterproofer paint. Again, that's like latex paint with sand in it. It's used for patios, I believe. And I'm just kind of soaking one side and sticking it on, and then I'm going to glob on the other side just so it has an even coat on both sides. And it dries really tough, so it'll actually reinforce the foam to the back of the tombstone just as a bit of reinforcement. And just like any other project worth doing, it's very messy, so make sure you could wear gloves, but that's stupid. Because who doesn't love peeling paint off their fingers for the next hour after filming a video? And lastly, I'm just reinforcing the back of that skull that popped off because I don't want it happening again. And here what I started doing is just filling in the parts of the exposed foam with the dry lock, just because these tombstones, much like people, are squishy and pink on the inside, and we don't want any of that coming out. And we also want them to stay waterproof for when it rains. So I'm just going to go ahead and cover up the little exposed bits. And now it's time to try dry brushing, which sounds kind of painful, but it's actually fine. So I'm just going to put a little tiny bit of white paint on this plate, just enough to cover the bottom. And I'm going to take a brush and I'm going to basically paint the plate so that the paint starts to dry. So there's just a very thin coat of paint, because we only want like a teeny tiny bit of paint on the brush. That's why it's called dry brushing, because basically it's going to dry instantly as soon as it touches the surface of the tombstone. And by lightly running the brush over it, even though it looks like I'm pressing a little harder than you need to be in this video, it's just going to paint the raised surfaces. So it's just going to make the little nooks and crannies pop, and it's going to look just like stone. And honestly, if you get a little bit of extra white somewhere, it just looks like bird poop, so it's all good. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is filling in the cracks with brown paint. Now, past tense Steve likes to disappoint future tense Steve in the fact that he took the time to carve cracks out of the tombstones, but then didn't take time to paint them so anyone could see them. So, color me disappointed. So for the last step, all I'm doing is burning myself with hot glue like I always do, and then attaching moss so it looks beautiful and gross. The moss I actually found in Dollar Tree. They've like a floral section that I found it in, so it's super cheap. I don't know what kind it is. Actually, I do. It's brown moss and green moss, so get those. Do any of you have regrets? So here they are, my fleet of beautiful and finally completed tombstones. And they're all fixed, and they're all better, and they're all great, and I'm proud of all of them. So here's some slow motion shots of each one. Some of them are funny, some of them are not. And I tried my best to be original, and by original I mean Googling things. And shout out to my best friend Bridget, who loves this one.
Hey Haunters, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you leave a thumbs up, make sure you leave a comment, hit the subscribe button, even hit the notification bell if you're crazy. If you didn't like the video, don't tell me, because you're going to hurt his feelings, okay? Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I will see you next time. Happy haunting.